In the quiet corridors of Windsor Castle, where centuries of royal footsteps have worn smooth the ancient stone floors, a 10-year-old boy sits at a mahogany desk that once belonged to his great-great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. His pencil hovers over a geography worksheet as he traces the borders of Commonwealth nations he will one day serve. Prince George Alexander Louis, third in line to the British throne, doesn't yet fully understand that every lesson he learns, every skill he develops, and every character trait he builds is preparing him for the most demanding job in the modern world. While other children his age worry about football matches and video games, George's parents, Prince William and Princess Catherine, are quietly orchestrating one of the most crucial preparation programs in royal history. They know that their eldest son will inherit not just a crown, but the weight of a 1,000-year-old institution that must evolve to survive in an increasingly complex world. This is the untold story of how a future king is being shaped, lesson by lesson, experience by experience, in an age where tradition must meet transformation. Behind palace walls, away from the cameras and public scrutiny, William and Catherine are writing a new playbook for royal preparation, one that honors the past while embracing an uncertain future. The boy who will one day be King George VII is being prepared not just to wear a crown, but to carry the hopes and expectations of millions. This is his journey from childhood to destiny, told through the careful planning, difficult decisions, and tender moments that will define both his character and the future of the British monarchy itself. The morning sun streams through the tall windows of apartment 1A at Kensington Palace as Prince William adjusts his tie and prepares for what will become one of the most important conversations of his life. Across the breakfast table, Princess Catherine spreads marmalade on toast while their eldest son, Prince George, chatters excitedly about a school project on ancient Egypt. The 9-year-old has no idea that his parents are about to make decisions that will shape every aspect of his future. William remembers his own childhood preparation for royal duties as a series of uncomfortable formal lessons and rigid protocols that often felt disconnected from real life. He recalls sitting through endless briefings about constitutional monarchy while longing to be outside playing football. The memory of feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of his future responsibilities still haunts him. He and Catherine have spent countless hours discussing how to do things differently for their children, particularly George, who will one day carry the heaviest burden of all. Catherine brings a unique perspective to this royal preparation. Having grown up as a commoner, she understands the world outside palace walls in ways that previous generations of royals could not. She has witnessed firsthand how the monarchy is viewed by ordinary people, both the reverence and the skepticism. This insight proves invaluable as she and William plan George's education and development. They want him to be thoroughly prepared for his role while remaining connected to the people he will serve. The couple decides to begin with subtle changes to George's daily routine. Instead of immediately overwhelming him with the weight of his destiny, they introduce concepts gradually through everyday experiences. During family dinners, they discuss current events and encourage George to ask questions about the world around him. When they watch the news together, William explains the role of government and how the constitutional monarchy fits into the broader political landscape. Catherine teaches George to observe and listen carefully to people from all walks of life, a skill that will prove essential in his future role. Education becomes the cornerstone of their approach. While George attends Lambrook School with his siblings, his parents supplement his formal education with private tutoring in subjects that will be crucial for his future role. Constitutional history, international relations, and languages top the list of additional studies. They hire tutors who can make these complex subjects accessible and engaging for a young mind. The goal is not to burden George with adult responsibilities but to build a foundation of knowledge that will serve him throughout his life. William and Catherine also recognize the importance of practical experience. They begin taking George on carefully selected royal engagements, initially as an observer rather than a participant. During a visit to a children's hospital, George watches quietly as his parents interact with young patients and their families. He observes how they balance formality with genuine warmth, how they listen attentively to personal stories, and how they use their presence to bring comfort and joy to difficult situations. These experiences teach him that royal duty is not about ceremony alone but about genuine service to others. The challenge of balancing public interest with family privacy becomes increasingly complex as George grows older. Every public appearance is scrutinized by media and royal watchers who look for signs of how the future king is developing. William and Catherine must carefully manage these expectations while protecting their son's childhood. They limit his public appearances to meaningful occasions and ensure that he has plenty of time for normal childhood activities away from the spotlight. Behind palace walls, the family works with constitutional experts and historians to develop a comprehensive understanding of the monarchy's evolution. George learns about the challenges his great-grandmother Queen Elizabeth II faced during her long reign, from the abdication crisis that brought her father to the throne to the modernization efforts that helped the monarchy survive changing times. These stories help him understand that being royal means adapting to serve each generation's needs while maintaining continuity with the past. The international dimension of George's future role receives particular attention. William and Catherine arrange for him to meet with young people from Commonwealth countries, teaching him about the diverse cultures and traditions he will one day represent. Through video calls with children from Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, George begins to understand the global nature of his inheritance. These connections help him see the monarchy not as a British institution alone but as a bridge connecting people across continents. Catherine's influence becomes particularly evident in how they approach George's emotional development. She ensures that he has regular sessions with child psychologists who help him understand and process the unique pressures he faces. These professionals teach him coping strategies for dealing with public attention and help him develop resilience for future challenges. The goal is to build his emotional intelligence alongside his intellectual preparation. Physical fitness and outdoor activities play a crucial role in George's development. William, drawing from his military experience, understands the importance of discipline and physical courage in leadership. George participates in age-appropriate adventure activities, learning to push through discomfort and overcome challenges. Rock climbing, sailing, and orienteering teach him problem-solving skills and build confidence that will serve him in all aspects of life. The family also focuses on developing George's social skills through carefully orchestrated interactions with children from various backgrounds. During private gatherings at Sandringham and Balmoral, George meets children whose families work on the royal estates. These friendships teach him about different life experiences and help him develop genuine empathy for people facing various circumstances. Catherine believes these relationships will keep him grounded as he grows into his role. Technology and modern communication methods receive significant attention in George's education. Understanding that he will reign in an increasingly digital world, his parents ensure he becomes comfortable with social media, video conferencing, and other technological tools that will be essential for connecting with future generations. They also teach him about the responsibilities that come with digital communication and the permanent nature of anything shared online. As George's 10th birthday approaches, William and Catherine reflect on the progress they have made in laying the foundation for his future role. They see a confident, curious child who asks thoughtful questions and shows genuine interest in the world around him. More importantly, they see someone who is developing the character traits that will make him an effective and beloved king. The foundation years have set the stage for more intensive preparation in the years to come, but William and Catherine are confident they have chosen the right path for their eldest son's remarkable journey toward the throne. The black Bentley pulls up to the entrance of the Royal London Hospital, and Prince George feels his stomach flutter with nervous excitement. At 11 years old, this marks his first official royal engagement where he will have active responsibilities rather than simply observing from the sidelines. Princess Catherine reaches over and squeezes his hand reassuringly, while Prince William reviews the schedule one final time. Today represents a significant milestone in George's preparation for his future role, as his parents have decided he is ready to begin hands-on learning about royal duties. The decision to include George in this hospital visit was not made lightly. William and Catherine spent months planning how to introduce him to official royal work in a way that would be meaningful without overwhelming him. They chose this particular engagement because it involves meeting children his own age who are facing serious health challenges. The experience will teach him about using his position to bring comfort to others while showing him the real impact that royal visits can have on people's lives. Inside the hospital, George follows his parents as they move through the pediatric ward. He watches carefully as William and Catherine interact with young patients, noting how they adapt their approach for each child. With a shy 6-year-old receiving cancer treatment, Catherine sits on the floor and speaks in gentle tones about the child's favorite storybooks. When they meet a teenage boy recovering from surgery, William discusses football and shares stories about his own sporting experiences. George observes these interactions with growing understanding of how royal duties require genuine engagement rather than formal ceremony. The moment that changes everything for George comes when he meets Sarah, a 10-year-old girl who has been in the hospital for weeks following a serious accident. Sarah recognizes George immediately and seems starstruck by meeting a real prince. George feels uncertain about how to respond until he remembers his mother's advice about finding common ground with everyone he meets. He notices Sarah's collection of books on her bedside table and asks about her favorite stories. Soon they are deep in conversation about adventure novels and fantasy series, with Sarah's face lighting up as she forgets about her injuries for a few precious moments. This interaction teaches George a fundamental lesson about royal duty. He realizes that his position gives him the power to make people happy simply by showing genuine interest in their lives. The understanding that he can use his status to bring joy to others during difficult times transforms his perspective on what it means to be royal. Catherine watches this moment with tears in her eyes, knowing that her son has just discovered the most rewarding aspect of royal service. Following the hospital visit, William and Catherine debrief with George about the experience. They discuss what he observed, how he felt, and what he learned about the responsibilities that come with royal privilege. George expresses amazement at how much difference a simple conversation can make to someone who is suffering. This leads to deeper discussions about the monarchy's role in society and how royal visits serve purposes beyond mere tradition. The success of George's first official engagement encourages his parents to gradually expand his involvement in royal duties. They carefully select engagements that will provide educational value while allowing him to develop confidence in his public role. A visit to a local primary school teaches him about educational challenges facing children from disadvantaged backgrounds. An afternoon at a homeless shelter opens his eyes to social problems and the importance of charitable work. Each experience builds his understanding of the complex world he will one day lead. George's participation in trooping the color ceremony represents another significant step in his development. Standing on the Buckingham Palace balcony beside Queen Elizabeth II, he experiences the weight of public attention and the powerful connection between the royal family and the British people. The roar of the crowd and the sea of Union Jack flags teach him about the emotional bond that ties the monarchy to the nation. He begins to understand that he is part of something much larger than himself. The challenges of this increased public exposure become evident when George struggles with the constant media attention following these appearances. Photographers follow his every movement, and royal commentators analyze his behavior for signs of his future character. William and Catherine must help him develop strategies for coping with this scrutiny while maintaining his natural personality. They teach him techniques for staying calm under pressure and emphasize that authenticity is more valuable than perfection. International experiences become increasingly important as George's role expands. During a family visit to Scotland, he participates in events celebrating Scottish culture and traditions. He learns Highland dancing, tries traditional Scottish sports, and meets with young people from across Scotland. These experiences teach him about the United Kingdom's complex cultural identity and the importance of understanding and celebrating regional differences within the realm. A particularly meaningful experience occurs during a private visit to Canada, where George meets with Indigenous youth and learns about their culture and history. This exposure to different perspectives on British colonial history challenges him to think critically about the monarchy's past and its role in addressing historical injustices. Catherine guides these discussions carefully, helping George understand that his future role will involve acknowledging difficult truths while working to build better relationships with all peoples of the Commonwealth. The development of George's public speaking skills becomes a priority as his role expands. He begins working with speech coaches who help him develop confidence in addressing groups of people. Starting with small gatherings at local schools, he gradually builds his ability to speak publicly about causes he cares about. His first speech, delivered to a group of young environmental activists, focuses on conservation efforts at the royal estates and demonstrates his growing passion for environmental protection. Technology continues to play an important role in George's education as he learns to navigate the digital aspects of modern royal duties. He participates in virtual meetings with Commonwealth youth leaders, learning to connect with people across time zones and cultural barriers. These digital interactions teach him about the global reach of his future role and the importance of embracing new forms of communication. The balance between normal childhood experiences and royal preparation becomes increasingly delicate as George takes on more responsibilities. William and Catherine work hard to ensure he maintains friendships with non-royal children and continues participating in regular school activities. They organize private playdates and encourage his involvement in school sports teams, understanding that these normal experiences will keep him grounded as his public profile grows. As George approaches his 12th birthday, his parents reflect on his remarkable progress in learning to handle royal duties with grace and genuine enthusiasm. They see a young person who is developing the emotional intelligence and social skills necessary for effective leadership. More importantly, they observe his growing understanding that royal privilege comes with the responsibility to serve others. The foundation laid during these formative experiences will support him throughout the more intensive training that lies ahead as he continues his journey toward the throne. The private jet descends through the clouds over Sydney Harbour, and Prince George presses his face to the window to catch his first glimpse of Australia. At 12 years old, this marks his first major international tour as an active participant rather than a passive observer. The 3-week journey through Australia, New Zealand, and several Pacific Island nations represents a crucial phase in his preparation for his future role as head of the Commonwealth. Prince William and Princess Catherine have carefully planned this tour to expose George to the diverse cultures, challenges, and opportunities that exist across the realm he will one day serve. The tour begins in Sydney, where George experiences the enthusiastic welcome that Commonwealth nations often provide to visiting royals. Thousands of people line the streets waving flags and holding welcome signs, many featuring his picture. The sight of so many people gathering just to see him initially overwhelms George, but he quickly learns to wave and smile while walking alongside his parents. Catherine whispers encouragement in his ear, reminding him that these people have taken time from their daily lives to show respect for what his family represents to them. At Government House in Sydney, George participates in his first formal state dinner outside the United Kingdom. He sits between the Governor-General and a young Aboriginal leader who teaches him about Indigenous Australian culture and the complex relationship between Native peoples and the Commonwealth. This conversation opens George's eyes to perspectives he has never considered, particularly regarding how the monarchy is viewed by people whose ancestors experienced colonization. The young leader speaks respectfully but honestly about both the harm caused by colonial history and the potential for reconciliation through thoughtful leadership. The following day brings a visit to Uluru, where George participates in a traditional smoking ceremony led by Aboriginal elders. As the sacred smoke swirls around him, he listens to stories about the spiritual significance of the land and the responsibility that comes with caring for it. The elders explain that true leadership means understanding the deep connections between people, land, and culture. This experience profoundly impacts George's understanding of environmental stewardship and cultural preservation, concepts that will become central to his future reign. In Melbourne, George visits a multicultural school where students from dozens of different countries share their stories about immigrating to Australia. He hears first-hand accounts of families who fled war, poverty, and persecution to build new lives in the Commonwealth. A 12-year-old refugee from Syria teaches George basic Arabic phrases and explains how the stability of Commonwealth nations provides hope for people around the world. These interactions help George understand that the monarchy represents safety and opportunity for millions of people seeking better lives. The tour's educational component intensifies in New Zealand, where George studies the country's unique constitutional relationship with the Crown. He learns about the Treaty of Waitangi and how different Commonwealth nations have developed their own approaches to balancing traditional monarchical structures with local governance needs. Meeting with young Maori leaders, George discovers how Indigenous rights and monarchical authority can coexist when approached with mutual respect and understanding. A particularly meaningful experience occurs at a climate research station in Antarctica, accessed through a brief extension of the New Zealand portion of the tour. Standing on the pristine ice while scientists explain the global impact of climate change, George grasps the urgency of environmental challenges facing his generation. The researchers show him ice core samples that reveal centuries of climate data, helping him understand how human activity has accelerated environmental degradation. This scientific exposure reinforces his growing commitment to environmental conservation as a key priority for his future reign. During the Pacific Island portion of the tour, George witnesses firsthand the effects of rising sea levels on small island nations. In Tuvalu, he meets children his own age whose families face the possibility of losing their homeland to climate change within their lifetimes. The Prime Minister explains how these nations look to Commonwealth leadership for support in addressing existential threats posed by environmental degradation. George begins to understand that his future role will involve advocating for vulnerable populations who have limited political power on the global stage. The technological aspects of modern Commonwealth connections become evident during virtual meetings with youth leaders from nations not included in the physical tour. From a conference room in Fiji, George speaks via video link with young people in India, Nigeria, Canada, and Jamaica. These conversations reveal the diverse perspectives within the Commonwealth and the challenges facing young people across different continents. A teenage entrepreneur from Lagos teaches George about innovation in developing economies, while a young Indigenous rights activist from Canada explains ongoing struggles for recognition and justice. George's growing understanding of Commonwealth diversity is tested during a complex discussion about the monarchy's future in various member nations. In Auckland, he participates in a roundtable with university students who debate whether Commonwealth countries should maintain monarchical systems or transition to republican forms of government. While some students express deep affection for the royal family, others argue that their nations have outgrown the need for monarchical institutions. George listens carefully to these perspectives without becoming defensive, learning that part of his future role may involve gracefully accepting when countries choose to leave the Commonwealth. The economic dimensions of Commonwealth relationships receive attention during visits to trade centers and business districts across the tour. George learns about economic partnerships that benefit member nations and how royal visits can strengthen commercial relationships. Meeting with young entrepreneurs in Brisbane, he discovers how Commonwealth connections facilitate international business relationships and cultural exchanges. These experiences teach him that the monarchy's soft power extends beyond ceremonial functions to include economic diplomacy and trade promotion. Cultural preservation becomes a recurring theme as George encounters traditional arts, music, and literature throughout the tour. In Papua New Guinea, he participates in traditional dance ceremonies and learns about oral history traditions that preserve ancient knowledge. Local artists teach him about traditional carving techniques and explain how cultural practices maintain community identity in an increasingly globalized world. These experiences reinforce his understanding that the Commonwealth's strength lies in its cultural diversity rather than cultural uniformity. The tour's educational impact extends beyond formal engagements to include private study sessions where George reflects on his experiences with tutors and his parents. Each evening, he writes in a journal about the day's encounters and discusses what he has learned about leadership, service, and cultural understanding. Catherine helps him process complex emotions about historical injustices while William provides perspective on how monarchical institutions can evolve to better serve diverse populations. Personal relationships formed during the tour prove as valuable as formal educational experiences. George develops friendships with young people from different cultural backgrounds, maintaining contact through social media and video calls after returning home. These relationships provide him with informal advisors who can offer authentic perspectives on how royal actions affect ordinary people throughout the Commonwealth. A teenage environmental activist from New Zealand becomes a regular correspondent, sharing updates about local conservation efforts and climate change impacts. As the tour concludes, George reflects on how much his worldview has expanded over the 3 weeks of intensive cultural immersion. He returns to London with a deeper appreciation for the Commonwealth's complexity and a better understanding of the challenges facing his generation of leaders. The experience has transformed abstract concepts about global citizenship into personal relationships and real understanding. William and Catherine observed that their son has matured significantly during the tour, developing empathy and cultural awareness that will serve him throughout his preparation for kingship. The global perspective gained during this journey provides the foundation for more advanced diplomatic training in the years ahead. The morning headlines hit like a thunderbolt through the carefully constructed world that Prince William and Princess Catherine have built around their family. Future king and classroom controversies screams across the front page of every major newspaper, accompanied by photos of 13-year-old Prince George looking uncomfortable during what should have been a routine school visit. A thoughtless comment made during a history lesson about colonial period has been taken out of context and blown into a major media storm that threatens to overshadow years of careful preparation for his future role. George sits in the drawing room of Kensington Palace, his face flushed with embarrassment and confusion as his parents explain the situation. During a discussion about British imperial history at his school, he had made an offhand remark defending certain colonial policies without fully understanding their broader implications. A visiting parent recorded the comment and shared it on social media, where it quickly spread and was interpreted as evidence of outdated royal attitudes toward Britain's colonial past. The incident marks George's first real experience with how quickly public opinion can turn and how every word he speaks will be scrutinized throughout his life. William draws from his own experience with media controversies to help George understand that this crisis, while painful, represents an important learning opportunity. He explains how his own mistakes as a young man taught him valuable lessons about responsibility and the weight of royal words. Catherine focuses on helping George process the emotional impact of suddenly finding himself at the center of public criticism. Together, they guide him through the process of taking responsibility for his words while learning from the experience. The palace communications team works around the clock to manage the crisis, but William and Catherine insist that George must be directly involved in crafting the response. They believe that learning to handle public relations disasters is a crucial skill for his future role. Under their guidance, George writes a personal statement acknowledging his mistake and explaining what he has learned from the experience. The process of drafting multiple versions and considering the impact of each word teaches him about the power and responsibility of public communication. The controversy provides an opportunity for deeper education about colonial history and its ongoing impact on Commonwealth relationships. George spends intensive weeks studying with historians who help him understand the complex legacy of British imperialism. He learns about economic exploitation, cultural suppression, and human rights abuses committed in the name of the Crown. More importantly, he studies how modern Commonwealth relationships can acknowledge these historical wrongs while building more equitable partnerships for the future. Meeting with community leaders from former colonial territories becomes a crucial part of George's education during this difficult period. Representatives from Caribbean, African, and South Asian communities in Britain share their family histories and explain how colonial policies affected their ancestors. These conversations are sometimes uncomfortable, but they provide George with authentic perspectives that no textbook could offer. He begins to understand that his future role will require ongoing engagement with these complex historical legacies. The media attention surrounding the controversy tests George's resilience in ways his parents never anticipated. Photographers follow him to school, and social media platforms buzz with commentary about his every move. Some supporters defend him as a child learning from mistakes, while critics question whether the monarchy can truly modernize when even the future king makes such errors. George must learn to function normally while knowing that millions of people are watching and judging his behavior. Catherine's influence becomes particularly important during this challenging period as she helps George develop emotional coping strategies for dealing with public criticism. She arranges sessions with child psychologists who specialize in helping young people manage pressure and scrutiny. These professionals teach George mindfulness techniques and stress management strategies that will serve him throughout his life in the public eye. The goal is not just to survive this crisis but to build resilience for future challenges. The incident also provides valuable lessons about the importance of trusted advisors and careful preparation. George begins working more closely with private tutors who help him think through the implications of his statements before making them public. He learns to ask questions about context and consequences rather than simply expressing immediate reactions. This preparation proves invaluable as he gradually returns to public engagements following the controversy. George's first public appearance after the media storm takes place at a multicultural festival in London, carefully chosen to demonstrate his commitment to learning about diverse perspectives. He spends hours preparing for the event, studying the backgrounds of people he will meet and practicing responses to potentially difficult questions. The appearance goes smoothly, with George showing genuine interest in learning about different cultural traditions and asking thoughtful questions about community experiences. The experience teaches George important lessons about redemption and the possibility of earning back public trust through consistent actions over time. Media coverage of his festival appearance focuses on his maturity and willingness to engage with diverse communities. Editorial writers begin acknowledging that expecting perfection from a teenager learning to navigate complex public responsibilities may be unrealistic. Slowly, public opinion begins to shift from criticism to cautious appreciation for his growth. Behind palace walls, the family uses this crisis to strengthen their preparation program for George's future role. They bring in additional advisors with expertise in diversity, inclusion, and international relations. Regular briefing sessions now include discussions about potential controversies and how to address them constructively. Role-playing exercises help George practice responding to difficult questions and unexpected challenges that may arise during public engagements. The international dimension of the controversy provides lessons about how royal statements affect Commonwealth relationships. Diplomatic staff from various member nations explain how George's comments were interpreted in their countries and what steps can be taken to rebuild confidence. These conversations help George understand that his words carry weight far beyond Britain's borders and that Commonwealth leadership requires sensitivity to diverse historical experiences and cultural perspectives. Education about media literacy becomes a priority following the crisis, as George learns how modern communication can amplify and distort messages. He studies how social media algorithms can spread misinformation and how context can be lost when statements are shared rapidly across platforms. Understanding these dynamics helps him develop more sophisticated communication strategies and greater awareness of how his words may be interpreted by different audiences. The support George receives from unexpected quarters during the controversy teaches him valuable lessons about public opinion and leadership. Young people from diverse backgrounds speak out in his defense, arguing that everyone deserves opportunities to learn from mistakes and grow. These voices help shift the narrative from condemnation to encouragement, showing George that authentic efforts to learn and improve resonate with many people who understand the challenges of growing up in public view. As the immediate crisis subsides, George reflects on how the experience has changed his understanding of his future role. He realizes that being king will involve constant learning, regular mistakes, and ongoing efforts to understand diverse perspectives. Rather than discouraging him, this understanding motivates him to work harder at developing the knowledge and skills necessary for effective leadership. The controversy that initially seemed devastating ultimately becomes a catalyst for deeper commitment to his preparation and a more realistic understanding of the challenges ahead. The incident also strengthens family bonds as William, Catherine, and George navigate the crisis together. They develop new routines for discussing potential controversies before they arise and create safe spaces for George to express doubts and concerns about his future role. The experience demonstrates that facing challenges together builds resilience and trust that will serve them well as George takes on greater responsibilities in the years ahead. The autumn mist rises from the grounds of Balmoral Castle as 14-year-old Prince George stands before a gathering of constitutional experts, Commonwealth representatives, and senior royal staff. This private summit, convened by Prince William and Princess Catherine, marks a pivotal moment in George's preparation for his future role. After years of gradual education and increasing responsibilities, the time has come to begin serious planning for the monarchy he will inherit. The assembled advisors represent diverse perspectives on how the institution must evolve to remain relevant and effective in a rapidly changing world. George listens intently as constitutional scholars outline the challenges facing monarchies in the 21st century. They discuss declining deference toward traditional authority, growing republican movements in some Commonwealth nations, and the need for royal institutions to demonstrate clear value to increasingly skeptical populations. These presentations are sobering but essential for helping George understand that his future reign cannot simply replicate the approaches of previous generations. The monarchy must modernize while maintaining its essential character and constitutional role. The international dimension of these challenges becomes clear during video conferences with representatives from across the Commonwealth. Leaders from Australia, Canada, Barbados, and Jamaica share perspectives on how their relationships with the Crown are evolving. Some express concerns about maintaining monarchical systems in increasingly diverse democracies, while others emphasize the positive role that modern monarchy can play in promoting unity and shared values. George asks thoughtful questions about how the institution can better serve diverse populations while respecting different cultural traditions and political preferences. Climate change emerges as a central theme during discussions about George's future priorities. Environmental scientists present alarming data about global warming impacts that will intensify during his lifetime and reign. They explain how climate migration, resource scarcity, and extreme weather events will create challenges requiring international cooperation and moral leadership. George's passion for environmental conservation, developed through years of exposure to these issues, positions him well to provide the kind of principled leadership that climate action requires. Technology experts brief George on digital transformation trends that will reshape communication, governance, and social interaction during his reign. They discuss artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and other emerging technologies that will change how leaders connect with citizens and address complex problems. George learns about both the opportunities and risks associated with digital communication, including the potential for misinformation, privacy violations, and social fragmentation. Understanding these dynamics will be crucial for effective leadership in an increasingly connected world. The economic dimensions of future monarchy receive detailed attention during briefings about global economic trends and their impact on royal institutions. Financial experts explain how changing economic patterns affect public attitudes toward monarchy and the resources available for royal activities. They discuss sustainable funding models that maintain royal independence while demonstrating responsible use of public resources. George begins to understand that future monarchs must be skilled economic stewards who can justify their institutional costs through clear public benefits. Social justice issues feature prominently in discussions about monarchy's future role. Representatives from human rights organizations explain how royal institutions can promote equality, support marginalized communities, and address historical injustices. They discuss specific initiatives that George might champion as king, from criminal justice reform to educational equity. These conversations help George understand that modern monarchy must actively promote social progress rather than simply maintaining traditional structures and ceremonies. Cultural preservation becomes another key theme as experts discuss how globalization threatens local traditions and identities across the Commonwealth. George learns about programs that use royal patronage to support indigenous arts, traditional crafts, and cultural festivals. He discovers how the monarchy's soft power can help protect cultural diversity while promoting understanding between different communities. This work appeals to George's interest in history and his growing appreciation for cultural complexity across the realm. The military dimension of royal leadership receives attention during briefings with defense experts who explain evolving security challenges. They discuss cyber warfare, terrorism, and international conflicts that will require careful navigation during George's future reign. Former military commanders share insights about leadership under pressure and the importance of understanding defense issues even as constitutional monarchs maintain political neutrality. These discussions help George appreciate the weight of his future role as head of the armed forces. Educational reform emerges as a priority area where George can make significant contributions as future king. Education experts present research about learning innovations, skills development, and educational equity issues that will shape the next generation. They discuss how royal patronage can support educational initiatives and promote best practices across the Commonwealth. George's own educational experiences provide valuable perspective on how learning approaches must evolve to prepare young people for rapidly changing economic and social conditions. Mental health advocacy represents another area where George can provide meaningful leadership based on his family's groundbreaking work in this field. Mental health professionals explain the growing crisis facing young people and the need for continued destigmatization efforts. They discuss how royal advocacy can promote mental wellness programs and encourage help-seeking behavior among vulnerable populations. George's understanding of pressure and stress from his own experiences helps him appreciate the importance of this work. The constitutional aspects of George's future role receive intensive examination during sessions with legal scholars and government officials. They explain the delicate balance between royal influence and political neutrality, helping George understand how constitutional monarchs can promote important causes without overstepping constitutional boundaries. These discussions include detailed analysis of successful royal interventions and cautionary tales about when royal involvement becomes problematic. Technology integration in royal operations becomes a practical focus as George learns about modernizing palace communications, digital engagement strategies, and virtual royal events. He participates in planning sessions for innovative approaches to royal tours, charitable activities, and public engagement that leverage technology to reach broader audiences. These skills will be essential as he assumes greater responsibilities and eventually becomes king in an increasingly digital world. Succession planning discussions help George understand the long timeline involved in his preparation and the gradual assumption of responsibilities that lies ahead. Palace officials outline how his role will evolve through his teenage years, university education, military service, and early adulthood before eventually becoming king. Understanding this timeline helps George pace his preparation and maintain perspective on the enormous task ahead while continuing to live as normal a life as possible during his formative years. The summit concludes with George delivering his first major speech to the assembled advisors, outlining his vision for future monarchy based on everything he has learned. He speaks about the importance of serving all people regardless of background, the urgent need for environmental action, and the monarchy's potential to promote understanding across cultural and national boundaries. His words demonstrate remarkable maturity and thoughtfulness for someone his age, confirming that the careful preparation undertaken by William and Catherine is producing the desired results. As the gathering disperses and normal life at Balmoral resumes, George reflects on the enormous responsibility that awaits him and the extensive preparation still required. He feels both excited and daunted by the challenges ahead, but confident that the foundation being built will enable him to serve effectively when his time comes. William and Catherine watch their eldest son with pride and optimism, knowing that while much work remains, they have successfully begun preparing him for one of the world's most demanding and important roles. The future of the British monarchy rests in capable hands as George continues his remarkable journey from childhood toward the crown. With each passing year, his preparation grows more sophisticated and his understanding deeper. The boy who once traced Commonwealth borders on geography worksheets is becoming a young man ready to lead those nations toward a more just, sustainable, and united future. The careful planning and patient guidance provided by William and Catherine are creating not just a future king, but a leader equipped to guide an ancient institution through the challenges and opportunities of the modern age.